Hi, welcome to VictoriaJean. I'm Victoria, and no, we're not in my backyard anymore. I am on a road trip. Behind me you can see the Cabinet Mountains. They're beautiful right now. I am on my way to visit my daughter and son-in-law and grandson Russell in northern Idaho. My daughter has planned a gender reveal party. Now, when I was having my children, those hadn't been invented yet because your gender was revealed when you had your baby. And I know a lot of people out there can relate to that. So I'm on a little trip. It's just a little over 200 miles from our house, so it's not too bad, and the roads have been really good. Well, we've reached Idaho and I'm getting closer to my daughter's house. There's quite a bit of traffic out here, so I hope you can hear me all right. Lake Pend Oreille is right behind me. Very pretty with some mountains in the distance. Since I am getting quite a bit closer to my daughter's house, I wanted to show you something else I have made for Russell. This is the Butterfly and Cocoon pattern by Susan B. Anderson. It's super cute. They're little butterflies and they fit into their own little cocoon. They're super sweet. And I made another one. I made a second one for the new baby. Yes, it has a pink face, but you know, sometimes people do have kind of pink faces. It's pink and purple, and I used some doubled sock yarn for the wings on this one. I also made two more to send to my other grandchildren, and I will insert a picture of them. They are super cute. I highly recommend Susan patterns. If you have some children or grandchildren, gosh, Susan B. Anderson's patterns are just adorable, so easy to follow, so cute. These turned out so well, I could hardly stop making them. I really, really enjoyed them. And I will continue on with my trip. When I reached the town of Sandpoint, Idaho, I decided to stop at the Something Old, Something New yarn shop. Really pretty place, really friendly owner, and just a ton of gorgeous, gorgeous yarn. And yes, I did spend some money there. I had a few technical difficulties at the beginning of this podcast with my audio, and sometimes that happens and you don't know it until you've left the area. As you can see, there is a lot of snow here in northern Idaho where my daughter lives. This area behind me has been bulldozed up from her parking area, and it's quite tall. Anyway, I wanted to talk about something I've done to prepare for the upcoming gender reveal. I was, to tell you the truth, I was tempted to just make a pair of pink baby socks. You can tell which way I'm prejudiced, but I did not. I did make one pink pair, and I also made a blue pair. because a second boy would also be very welcome, whichever it is. And this pattern is called Perfect Fit Newborn Socks. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. I have made these quite a few times, this pattern in specific, and I really like it. It seems to fit babies really well. The foot looks really long, but as she says in the pattern, babies have longer feet than you think. So this has always worked out well. Another thing I made for Russell before I came up here was this little parlor cat pattern. It didn't turn out as well as I would have liked. The head's a little small. I think it looks a little weird, and it probably looks a little stranger now because their cat has gotten hold of it and has been using it as a cat toy where it was supposed to be just a toy cat. But Russell likes his little meow meow toy. I think the cat might take it over, but whatever. I think I will try this pattern again because, like I said, the head turned out a little small, so I think I might enlarge that and try it again. It's a cute little pattern because you attach these two little legs to the bottom of it, and so it sits really nicely on a flat surface. She has another one that she calls the windowsill cat pattern, I think. I saw that on someone on Ravelry had done this pattern and also had linked to the other one, and I thought that one sounded really cute too, so I'd like to try that one out. It's just a real quick one-day project. It doesn't take much time, and they turn out kind of cute. So anyway, that's been most of my preparation for the gender reveal party. I will probably show you some other things that happen at it. I also made a hat for Russell before I came up. Barbara at the Flame and Fiber podcast made 2 of them for her granddaughters. They are the little topper hat, and I will insert a picture of Russell and I in here of him wearing his little hat. It turned out well. I liked it. I think the price on it was like $9.50 or $10.50, so pretty inexpensive. I was happy with that. The hardest part was choosing which little topper to buy. They had so much variety. They were really cute and hard to pick one. But it's a cute little easy project. I made it a little longer in length than the pattern called for because I wanted to make sure it fit him, and I also wanted to make sure that he could turn the brim up a little if he needed to. So I think it turned out really cute. To give you an idea of how much snow there's a car under there, and there's another car under that pile. Crazy. Hi, I'm at Priest Lake, and as you can tell, I have finished my Cleopatra wrap. I think it turned out really nice. I'm not sure with what I will wear it, but I'm going to make an effort to wear it. It was a great pattern. I think it turned out really pretty. Her instructions were great. She did, the creator of the pattern did have some issues with the pattern as it appeared in her book. So if you ever do decide to make this, be sure to watch for her errata notes in there. And last time I talked about the movie Cleopatra. This time, if you are a returning viewer, you probably realize what's going to happen. I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the Cleopatras that is from history that we all are familiar with. And I got most of my information from reading this book, which is just, it's full of things about Cleopatra. Probably more than you might ever want to know. And here are just a few of the things I did not know about her. She was descended from a family which makes the Sopranos look like the Waltons. They were constantly murdering each other. There was a constant struggle for power, and it was a very common thing to happen. She was also not an Egyptian. She was of Greek descent. Her family was gifted the country of Egypt, and they ruled it for 300 years. But she was the first one of the rulers in her family who actually went to the bother to learn the Egyptian language. The rest of them spoke their native Greek, and they just expected everyone to translate for them. She was born in 69 BC. She was the second of 3 daughters. 2 brothers followed, to each of which she would, in succession, be briefly joined in marriage. And that's how they tried to keep the dynasty in power within the family. All 5 of her siblings met violent ends. She spoke 7 languages. She knew that the moon had an effect on tides, that the earth was spherical. She knew of the existence of the equator, the value of pi, the latitude of Marseille, the behavior of linear perspective, the utility of a lightning conductor. She knew that a person could sail from Spain to India, a voyage that was not to be made for another 1,500 years. We know she wore plenty of pearls, which were the diamonds of her day. But we have very little idea of her physical appearance. Cleopatra was never spoken of as being beautiful. She was spoken of as when you met her, you fell in love with her because of who she was, not so much because of what she looked like. And the closest idea we have of her appearance appears on these coins that she had minted when she was in power. And she ruled Egypt for 20 years. In her time, Egyptian women enjoyed the right to make their own marriages. Women inherited equally and held properly independently. Married women did not submit to their husband's control. They enjoyed the right to divorce and to be supported after a divorce. On the other hand, Romans marveled that in Egypt, female children were left to die. A Roman was obligated to raise only his firstborn daughter. Egyptian women loaned money and operated barges. They served as priests in the native temples. They initiated lawsuits. They owned vineyards, wineries, ships, perfume businesses, milling equipment, slaves, homes, and camels. Also, it's easy to think that, or at least, okay, I'll say for me, it's easy to think that Cleopatra came from so far back in our past. But in truth, there was so much history before her. For instance, she didn't know that the Sphinx of Giza existed. It was still under sand during her time. And as I said, she was born in 69 BC, but the Sphinx was built around 2500 BC by previous rulers of Egypt, and it was only revealed in 1817. She was also related, she was a descendant of Alexander the Great, and he was very, very popular and exalted in her time. Her home of Alexandria is now about 20 feet underwater. At its peak, the city's 90-foot wide main avenue left visitors speechless. You could lose a day exploring it from end to end. Lined with delicately carved columns, silk awnings, and richly painted facades, the main avenue could accommodate 8 chariots driving abreast. The city's primary side streets were nearly 20 feet wide, paved with stones, expertly drained, and partially lit at night. From east to west, the city measured nearly 4 miles, a wonderland of baths, theaters, gymnasiums, court, temples, shrines, and synagogues. It was a mood-altering city of extreme sensuality and high intellectualism, the Paris of the ancient world. And yes, she was brought up in the lap of luxury. In comparison, when she visited Caesar in Rome, staying at his villa, which did not include such an entrance as the one shown in the movie at all, she entered rather quietly. At the time of her visit, Rome had only just discovered urban design. another Eastern import. You would search in vain for the famous landmarks. The Colosseum had not yet been built, nor were the Pantheon or the baths of Caracalla. Pompey's theater had been Rome's only structure of distinction. It had inspired Caesar's Forum, which it now eclipsed. Rome remained provincial, but increasingly aware of itself as such. Greece continued to spell culture, elegance, and art. If you wanted a secretary, a doctor, an animal trainer, a craftsman, you wanted a Greek. And if you wanted a bookstore, you dearly hoped to find yourself in Alexandria. And we often, when we think of Cleopatra, we often think of a seductress. But when she met Julius Caesar, she was just 21 years old. And she was married to her 13-year-old brother at the time, but don't think that a lot was going on between them, or possibly anything, because they were pretty much struggling to either simply depose each other or to murder each other. And when she met Caesar, he was 52 years old, and he had quite a reputation as a ladies' man. He was on his third wife, and he was known as a seducer of friends' wives and their daughters. Her first real meeting with Mark Antony took place in Tarsus, because she needed a Roman protector and he needed her money. Cleopatra invited Antony to dinner on her boat. What happened next is revealing of both parties. Antony was a little too amenable, Cleopatra decidedly high-handed. It was the mark of status to give the first dinner. She insisted that he come to her with whatever friends he desired. From the start, she means to have meant to make a point. She did not answer summonses. She delivered them. Antony obeyed and went. Cleopatra's preparations defied description. Antony thrilled especially to the elaborate constellations of lights she had strung through tree branches overhead. They cast a gleaming lace of rectangles and circles over the sultry summer night, creating a spectacle that has seldom been equaled for beauty. Either that evening or on a subsequent one, Cleopatra prepared 12 banquet rooms. She spread 36 couches with rich textiles. Behind them hung purple tapestries embroidered with glimmering threads. She saw to it that her table was set with golden vessels, elaborately crafted and encrusted with gems. Under the circumstances, it seems likely that she too rose to the occasion and draped herself in jewels. Pearls aside, Egyptian taste ran to bright semi-precious stones: agate, lapis, amethyst, carnelian, garnet, malachite, and topaz, set in gold pendants, sinuous, intricately worked bracelets, long dangling earrings. On his arrival, Antony gaped at the extraordinary display. Cleopatra smiled modestly. She had been in a hurry. She would do better next time. She then allowed that all these objects were a gift for him, and invited him to come and dine with her again on the next day along with his friends and commanders. At meal's end, she sent her guests off with everything they had admired: the textiles, the gem-studded tableware, and the couches as well. Just as quietly, she raised the bar, enough to make the initial banquet look Spartan. Antony returned on his fourth evening to a knee-deep expanse of roses. The florist's bill alone was a talent, or what 6 doctors earned in a year. In the rippling Sicilian heat, the perfume must have been intoxicating. At evening's end, the trampled roses alone remained behind. Again, Cleopatra divided the furnishings among her guests. She was quite the lady. To this day, no one knows where Cleopatra was buried. She was 39 years old when she died. Cleopatra lay on a golden couch, probably an Egyptian-style bed with lion paws for legs and lion heads at its corners. Majestically and meticulously arrayed in her most beautiful apparel, she gripped in her hands the crook and flail. She was perfectly composed and completely dead. It is often said that she died from the bite of an asp or a snake, but as they say in this book, that probably wasn't true because 2 of her handmaidens also died at the same time with her, and so it was probably a poison that Cleopatra drank along with her handmaidens. In her adult life, Cleopatra would have met few people she considered her equal. To the Romans, she was a stubborn, supreme exception to every rule. She remains largely incomparable. She had plenty of predecessors, few successors. With her, the age of empresses essentially came to an end. In 2,000 years, only 1 or 2 other women could be said to have wielded unrestricted authority over so vast a realm. Cleopatra remains nearly alone at the all-male table, in possession of a hand both flush and flawed. She got a very good deal right and one crucial thing wrong. It is impossible to fathom how she could have felt at the end of the summer of 30, as Octavian closed in, as it became more and more clear that there were to be no more reversals of fortune, no more brilliantly salvaged futures, that she and Egypt were this time plainly lost. The fear and fury must have shattered Cleopatra as she realized she was to become the woman who destroyed the Egyptian monarchy. For her monumental loss, there were no consolations, including, assuming she believed in one, a brilliant afterlife. I certainly enjoyed reading this book. There were a lot of details in it, a lot of details. The writers of history at the time were few and far between. A lot of them were Roman, and so most of the Romans detested her quite a bit. They detested her for her relationships with Caesar and with Mark Antony, and so they didn't speak well of her. So it's a little touchy to try to put together a story of her life, but I think they did I think this woman did very well. Stacy Schiff. There were so many details. Rome sounded like an absolute nightmare to live in at the time. Very violent, lots of civil war. I was really surprised at how much violence was going on. And I thought, oh gosh, what an awful history. And then I thought, oh, well, you know, you look at the events happening today in our times and you're like, yeah, well, still pretty violent. So I guess it's human nature. I hate to say that. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I hope it won't be forever, right? I hope humans turn around and stop the violence at some point. But a good read. I have a much better understanding of Cleopatra, and I found it really fascinating. I will put in some photos of Caesar at the time. When she met him, they often show him with a head of hair, but history says that he was pretty much bald by the time she met him. So I'll show a picture of him. I will also insert a picture of a handsome Mark Antony. You can still tell how handsome he was. So a very good read. Definitely a good read. I highly recommend it. I stopped and got myself some coffee on the way here. It's 24 degrees out and it's pretty chilly. I also finished these Inline for Pumpkin Spice latte socks. The yarn was from the Cozy Knitter, and the colorway is Whisper. They're very pretty. I like them. I like them quite a bit. I haven't worn them yet, and I'm looking forward to wearing them. I might wear them while I'm up here visiting my daughter. I think this would be a good time to break them out, right? Another pair of socks I finished since my last podcast these are for me, and these are Barocco socks. I'll put the colorway down below. It's just a number. The heels, toes, and cuffs are from a mini I received as a gift from Cappy at the Yarn and I. Very pretty purple. I thought they contrasted really nicely with these socks. These are just simple toe-up socks. Fish Lips Kiss heel on size 1 needle, 60 stitches, and I did a simple 2x2 rib all the way up. All right, we'll change your view a little bit. You can see a slightly different view of the lake. I also finished one of those little sweater ornaments for my newest grandchild who will be born sometime probably early July. I think this one's really cute too. You can look on my last podcast to see the patterns and everything about these little sweater ornaments. They're super cute. I really like them. So if you haven't already started something for the Knitflix Mal make-along that Wendy from the Baba Yaya podcast and Linda from the Joey Scarf podcast and I are putting on, I hope you'll jump in. There's still plenty of time to complete something. Please enter into the chatter threads. Each of our podcasts has a chatter thread. Finished objects are to be put just in my Ravelry group, Victoria Knits podcast group on Ravelry. So enter your finished items in there. There will be prizes. There are going to be a few extra prizes we have recently found out. So that should be fun. So I mentioned that I had bought some yarn at that Something Old, Something New yarn store, so I thought I'd show that to you. One of the things I bought was this Heritage Prints yarn. I think those will make some lovely, lovely socks. It doesn't look like it has a colorway. It just says color 20, so great. But this was $13. I felt like that was a really good buy for some sock yarn. I love the colors. I think that'll be really pretty. I had not seen this brand of yarn before, but I thought this was really pretty also. Araucania yarns. Let's see, I think it's from Turkey, I do believe. Yes, it's from Turkey. I couldn't resist it. I love those colors. There were so many pretty colors I had a hard time choosing. This yarn was $19.95, so $20. I didn't think that was bad either. It says hand-painted superwash wool blend. Very pretty. And another one I bought was this Regia Arnie and Carlos. And it is, I bet it doesn't have a color either. No, just a number. Super pretty. Look how that's supposed to knit up into a sock. My daughter has been cruising some of these Arnie and Carlos yarns, and I showed them to her, and she was really in awe of how they self-stripe and how pretty they are. So yeah, these will probably be for her. This one was $18. Not too bad. I did buy another skein of yarn, a plain color, a tonal color, and I'm going to rewind that and break it up into some minis, I think, and I think I'll stick one in with my prize for our Knitflix make-along, because it's always nice to get a mini with your sock yarn, right? Whether you use it for the sock or not, it's always nice to get something a little extra, so I think I'll do that with that. All those yarns came to a total of just over $50, which is my yarn budget for a month. Actually, that's my spending money for a month. And I think it's perfectly reasonable. I was happy to plop down that much money, and very happy with the things I bought. I think they're very pretty. It felt like a real splurge, and we all need that once in a while, right? So that was fun. So it's been a fun trip up here. My grandson's been really fun to play with. He can be a challenge because he's almost 2 years old, and like any 2-year-old, he likes a lot of attention, and so you know, he keeps you busy and on your toes. I haven't had much knitting time, but that's okay. I came up here to have family time with my daughter and her family, so it's been fun. As you can tell, there's a ton of snow up here, more than we even have in Montana. It's very pretty. It's like living in a snow globe. I like to say that a lot. So at the end of the podcast for the off the porch segment, that will be some rather tame things this time. We don't have much wildlife that hangs around the house in the middle of winter. They seem to scatter and go where the food is. Namely, we have seen lots of deer hanging out on people's properties who have horses and have to put out hay for their horses. So It'll be a little tamer segment, but I hope you still enjoy it. Also, if you're a returning viewer, thank you for returning. You're appreciated so much. If you're a new viewer, I hope you found something you liked. Thumbs ups and subscribers are always appreciated if you feel like it. And I'm sure I will be including some little tidbits from the gender reveal party. So I hope you enjoy that. And this time, goodbye from Idaho.